Hello everyone, my name is Anuja and I welcome you to today's session, Strategize with Get.Set.Law. And what are we strategizing today? It's about reading comprehension, one of the most important skills as far as the entire CLAT paper is concerned, and for that matter, all the other law entrances. Not just CLAT, but ALET, LSAT, all these examinations give extreme importance to reading comprehension. And I am assuming that you already know that since you are here. So what are we going to do today? I'm going to give you a complete bird's eye view of what this skill is about, what are you supposed to do, what are the do's, what are the don'ts. So if there is something which is absolutely new for you, please ensure that you take notes. Okay, so let's get started with the first question. The first question is how to get started. Now, obviously, for starters, I'm going to ask you to start reading. So you have to pick up a reading habit. That is the first thing that is absolutely crucial for you to do if you are a non-reader. So if you already read, you have been reading for a while, you're pretty much sorted as far as the starting is concerned. But if you're somebody who's never really read anything much beyond cartoon strips or your feed on social media, then you are in troubled waters. You really have to cultivate a reading habit. And you need to ensure that your reading sources are diverse. It can't be just one thing. It can't just be politics, or it can't just be the sports page of your newspaper. It has to be diverse. So ensure that you read newspapers, go for Sunday editions for in-depth reading. Sometimes pick up a magazine to see how the writing style differs. You know why? There are questions in which they ask you from which source have we taken this text. And unless you know the different writing styles, how would you even differentiate an essay from an editorial, from something that comes in a research article, right? So to get started, read something and please do a time block for your reading. When I say a time block, I mean some time where you specifically read, okay? Nothing else. So maybe if it is extremely boring for you, reading is extremely boring and difficult for you, then the earlier the better. As soon as you get up, before you head off for your other chores and classes, make sure that you read at least something. Okay, something to get started with. If you are in a comfort zone and you want to do some leisure reading, then before you go to sleep, read for half an hour. But make it a very important, indispensable part of your routine so that you don't forget, the way to read, okay? And there's always this advantage that you learn words when you read. Now, ensure that you don't make it just about words. Yes, you're learning new words, great for you, but don't make it just about words. It's about ideas. It's about having words to express your ideas, but focus on the ideas more than you focus on words, okay? So I hope this how to begin with part is clear to all of you. I'll take you forward to the next part. Now we'll discuss the most important question types. So see, if I have to summarize it for you, I'll say there are two question types, direct and indirect. Now the direct questions are really simple. What do they require you to do? Just find out where this information is given in the text and you are sorted. Okay, so when they say who did this, and you just find out that line and you get your answer. But as you have already guessed it, these questions are not that common. You need some thinking. You need to display that you can think. So there are more indirect questions. Questions like, what is the theme or what is the main idea of the passage? Always expect this kind of question, because if you're reading 400 to 500 words and you do not know what is this primarily about, then what's the point of investing all that time? So there will definitely be one question about the theme, the primary purpose, why the author has written this. You can also expect a question on the tone of the author. How is he feeling? What's the emotional quotient involved here? Is he angry? Is he upset? Is he happy? Is he elated? Just find out that emotion. If there is a mix of emotions, then find out what's the most dominant one. But always expect a question on tone or writing style. Then there are questions which are borrowed from the critical reasoning department, and they ask you to infer. So you know how to infer, you look for the evidence, and on the basis of that evidence, you infer whatever you think is most conclusive. Okay, so these are the most important question types. Other than that, you can also get some contextual vocabulary. Now, when I say contextual vocabulary, it is absolutely important that you read the sentence where that word was used and you realize how it is used, and then you tell what the meaning is. Now, why is that important? Because sometimes there are words that have multiple parts of speech, and when they have different parts of speech, the meaning also changes as the part of speech changes. So make sure that you read the context, get the connotation from there, and then try to answer. Develop your knowledge on figures of speech, because there will be questions on can you identify if it's a metaphor or a simile or a metonymy or a synecdoche or a paradox. So you need to know what all these words I just mentioned mean. Okay, these are the most important question types. If you prepare yourself for these, you should be sorted. Now, let me take you forward and talk about the most common styles of passages. I've already told you the most common types of questions. Now, what are the most common types of passages? One common type of passage is what we will call an objective passage. What happens here is author shares no emotions, no opinions, and he just tells you what the case is. Just the facts, neutral, pure facts. That's one style. But if he starts going in more detail, then you call it an analytical style of passage, analytical or expository style, where he wants to go in depth, delve deeper, find out what are the pros, what are the cons, what has happened in the past, what are they planning for the future, and then tries to conclude something. Okay. The another style could be an argumentative passage. And sometimes the students confuse these two, analytical and argumentative. Now, there is a stark difference. When we are in analysis mode, we try to find out everything, pros and cons, past and future, and we are kind of unbiased here. But when it's an argumentative style, we have a clear argument to make, and our mind is already kind of made up, and we are just supporting that argument. We are just supporting that conclusion. That is the argumentative style of passage. Okay. You'll also find some narrative passages when you practice your material. Narrative ones are the most fun to read. They have a storyline, a plot, characters, protagonist, antagonist. You will be able to identify this one the fastest, because you have been reading stories ever since. They were a part of your curriculum. Even if you were not reading at home, at school you were reading narrative passages. You also get some descriptive ones, where the focus is on describing in detail a particular object or a particular place or a particular person, and while description, the author may or may not share his or her opinion. Now, there are other kinds of passages too. If the passage is just written with the agenda of appreciating someone, then that's an appreciative passage. If the author is just written the text with the agenda of criticizing someone, then that's a critical passage. If that criticism is done in an indirect way, it could be sarcastic or satiric, depending on whom we are targeting. If we are targeting a public issue, then it could be a satire. If we are targeting a person, then it could be sarcasm. So you will learn more about this as we go forward. But today's session is about giving you a bird's eye view, a panoramic view. So these are the most common styles of passages that you should prepare yourself for. How will you do that? When you read from diversified sources, newspapers, fiction, non-fiction, you will get a bunch of these. Now let's have a look at something which bothers most of the students, the most common traps in option selection. It's the job of a question setter to make confusing options, and that's what he does. He makes confusing options. Sometimes he confuses us by changing the scope. What does that mean? When you change the scope, you say the same thing, but the applicability is different. So maybe what the author said applied to one individual, but in the option you made it about a group, or you did vice versa. So just ensure that the scope remains the same. I hope you're getting what I'm trying to explain. If the author is talking in general sense, you stay general. If the author is talking in specific sense, then you become specific. Okay, so don't change the scope. Don't change the intensity. That's another very important thing. If author is being dramatic here, then you stay dramatic. If author is mellowed, then you stay mellowed. Don't use extreme words like only or superlatives or always or never if author has not used it. Okay, so just be careful of these things. One final thing that I'll make you aware of is the introduction of alien ideas that were not a part of the original text. Now, this happens when we are tired of reading and the fatigue is wearing us down and we introduce ideas on our own. But please ensure that you do not have alien ideas in the picture, because with reading comprehension, the thing is that you have to justify everything. Okay, I hope now that I have warned you, you will be more careful and not fall into these common traps. Now that you understand the common question types, the common option traps, the common passages, let's summarize everything by discussing what are the skills that you need. What is it that you need? So I think you need vocabulary. That is very, very important. You need vocabulary. Without words, you will not be able to process these ideas. Okay, you also need reading habit, reading practice, because it's not a child's play to sit for a couple of hours and just read passage after passage and think and choose. No, it requires practice. You also need to know how to eliminate. So your elimination strategy is also something which has to be on point, because if you can eliminate, then you can obviously select. And in this exam, you have to eliminate more often than selection, right? So just make sure you know the right reason, Are you eliminating it because it's differing in scope, or it's differing in the meaning, or it's differing in intensity, or is this a new idea alien to the passage? Just know the right reasons, okay? You will definitely require a standard discipline to make sure that you practice every day, because without that, it's all going to become random. You will forget the words that you have learned. You will not be able to deliver on the D-Day. So here is my hope that once I have told you all these things, now it will not be difficult for you to get started and develop on these skills. Now just do a quick check. Do I have a decent vocabulary? You can take a vocab quiz, high frequency words. You can have a look at some previous year papers of CLAT and ALET, and you will have an idea. You will have a clear idea of what kind of words you need to know and how many of them do you know. If not, then start working on those skills. I, in this journey, will be your constant companion. I'm going to help you out with developing all these skills. But I hope for today, you have got the bigger picture. Okay? So that's all from my side today. In today's session, we did a bird's eye view of the reading comprehension section, which is the 20% of, roughly 20% of the CLAT paper. So around 25 questions we are expecting, around 5 passages. And I hope that you do very well. At least 4 passages all of you should be able to do out of these 5. More in my next video. Thank you very much.